Everyone, this is update for July 26, 2022, day 153 of the war and of the date update. As always, we're getting sort of new rockets from Victoria Spartz that are shooting, aiming at Andrei Yermak. We'll see if he's going to be able to deflect this one as well as he did the previous ones. Maybe he will need to sacrifice Tatarov. We'll see if that happens. But she's kind of bringing the similar allegations and the new allegations against Andrei Yermak. And the point of those allegations is, as you can see here, highlighted. Basically, that she was approached by some U.S. defense contractor, apparently in Ukraine, who voiced concerns about the person here, who is Denis Sharapov. He was appointed in April of this year by Andrei Yermak to deal with their sort of acquisition or purchases of the equipment, of the military equipment by Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. So this obviously big opportunity because it's for let's say corruption, because it's all opaque and so on. However, the bigger problems with this person are the following: is that he has actually business with Andrei Yermak, and then in the same company, and then with Boris Yermak. So, and then if you remember, Boris Yermak is the father of Andrei Yermak, and he worked for a Russian equivalent of Central Intelligence Agency under Ministry of Defense. And as you can imagine, there are never ex sort of members of security community. They always they work there till they die. Let's put it this way. And the bigger problem with all of this is that this person, Denis Sharapov, was actually he had business with Andrei Yermak, and then he actually returned to Ukrainian Ministry of Defense under Ukrainian President Yanukovych, who, if everybody knows or remembers, he was a totally Russian puppet, and he was ousted by Ukrainian people because he was openly basically handing over country to Russia. So he remained in this Ministry of Defense, and he was also in charge with actually export of weapons from Ukraine at that time. Because for those who are not aware, Ukraine had huge stockpiles of the Soviet weapons, and it's being sort of sold around the world over past, let's say, 30 years everywhere. And so he was part of this monopoly company that was specifically created for export of Ukrainian/Soviet military equipment. And then the other interesting part of this that his sister is actually also owns the company, private company, because he works formally for the government. Then she owns the company called Trade House Ukraine Democratic Republic of Congo. And as you imagine, there is a lot of sales, not a lot, but there is, it's one of the buyers of their military equipment. So you can see that there is a lot of, call it, questionable things that make you sort of question about this person. And the bigger problem that they all connected, all of them three are connected to Rahamim Emanuilov, who he's essentially KGB or sort of operative of FSB right now. He is very close to the Russian president, has many connections there. So basically, and he is also advisor to the members, to the Russian senators. So it's Russian parliament has two chambers, upper chamber and lower chamber, similar to US. And so upper chamber, the same as in US, as they called senators. So he's advisor to the senator. He was in Afghanistan as a KGB operative there. Then after then he was dealing with also with the fall of the Soviet Union. Basically, he was engaged in a lot of kind of like things that happening there due to like sale of also military equipment. You know, basically there were some questions about the Communist Party money, where it's gone, and so on. So he basically he's sort of deep in the weeds of all of them, call it corruption and all of that that's going on. So she basically released a letter asking about 3 or 4 hours ago, asking U.S. president to pay attention to these facts and sort of do something about it. Basically, that's her sort of that's the essence of the letter. So we'll see what happens as a result of this letter, because this is obviously brings this whole scandal to another level, because allegations are getting sort of more, how to say, pointed, more specific. Also, she was mentioning all of the people who were speaking to her in Ukraine. They were attacked one way. They were attacked in one way or another by Andrei Yermak, using obviously government power as a tool. So that's update on that. Now let's actually discuss a few more things. So as we mentioned, Ukraine has this Naftogaz of Ukraine, which is government monopoly. It was basically a shell company created in around 1999, 2000, to be able to monopolize the market and then give control to whoever is in the power to kind of like reap the benefits of the corruption and monopoly. And so that company now declared default on its foreign bonds. We discussed that it tried to negotiate with its lenders and its private lenders, and they were unwilling to give concessions to Naftogaz, and so now it's in default. And then at the same time, Ukrainian Prime Minister is asking US to give $10 billion to purchase natural gas for the winter. For those who maybe haven't seen all of the videos, they remember that we discussed this problem in Ukraine, where Ukrainian government, by its own actions, sometime in April, basically destroyed natural gas production industry in Ukraine by hiking taxes to about like 60 or 70%. So essentially you have no incentive to work, and not to mention that you're also working in the work conditions where the risk is higher, so the reward should be higher, right? So it's very logical. Nobody works for free. And so what they did, they basically suffocated the industry. The production of natural gas is declining as a result of that, because in general Ukraine is self-sufficient in natural gas. It was literally like about 5 years ago was producing close to 20 billion cubic meters of natural gas, and that's enough for Ukraine to cover its needs. Not to mention that the needs went down significantly because the industry is essentially stopped, not working. And so you really just need to cover very like sort of simple needs just for heating, just for ordinary citizens, right? The industries has become sort of extremely tiny portion of the natural gas needs. So that should have worked if the government did not do what they did, was basically, destroying the natural gas production industry in Ukraine. And now what they do, they go and asking for money. And they probably suspect that the money is not coming, because that's why they actually instructed Naftogaz of Ukraine to default, because they see that the expectation was that there will be, Ukrainian government will be showered with the money, and they see that that's not happening, because nobody is willing to sort of nobody has enough money to finance a large counter perpetual. And that's why we mentioned from the very beginning that Ukraine need to be self-reliant. That's the only way to survive. especially in the war of attrition. So because the Ukrainian political top or political class is still thinking that they somehow someone will be sort of sending money forever, and just that's a solution. And then they probably starting to realize that that's not a solution, and so they trying to conserve those FX reserves that we discussed that the Ukrainian central bank holds. So they understanding that probably all of that promised money is not coming, or it's maybe coming in 2023. So they're starting to realize that they need to conserve FX that they have, basically savings account, right? So think about it as a simple person. You stopped you don't have work anymore, because whatever, just the company that you worked for went bankrupt, and now you don't have work, you don't have income, so you have to rely on either promised money from some, let's say, neighbor or relative who offers you, like land to land money, and then you have your own savings, right? And it turns out that the a neighbor or relative, they becoming very concerned about your ability to repay the debts because there is war over, which is also so, and then so they don't want to lend you because they're concerned, and they getting also in difficult positions themselves because of the natural gas, because of all of the situation with energy supplies and so on. So they themselves in a difficult situation, so they're less willing to lend to you. So as a result, you have to rely on your own savings, and then you're realizing that you really cannot repay the debt because soon you're going to be out of your savings. So that's basically in a nutshell the situation in Ukraine. It probably should have been done in general. All of this, default or whatever renegotiations of the debt should have been done on the day one of the war, because it's very obvious Ukraine will not be able to pay down its debts. It has to be renegotiated because the country is even, let's say, whenever Ukraine liberates the territories, once they liberated the industry is not there, it's devastated economically. So there is no ability to repay those debts, and the debts were approaching to like 100% of GDP. So basically, it's heavily indebted country. So that's just there is just no ability to really to pay those debts at this point. Well, from the very beginning, and we're obviously not discussing how the debts were accumulated. We mentioned this before. They were sort of very sort of wasteful. The way they were created they were not used for good purposes. They were not used to build productive capacity to repay those debts. They were just basically wasted on consumables to create sort of false impression of kind of like not prosperity, but sort of like economic comfort in the country. And so those times apparently are gone. And as we discussed, the financial future and economic future right now is extremely bleak. And the bigger even problem, in our opinion, is the Ukrainian government that actually poses at this point much, much bigger threat to survival of Ukraine as a country, as a state, with its actions, because it's destroying Ukraine's ability to continue its self-defense, with its actions where it essentially suffocates Ukrainian economy. Whatever is remaining of Ukrainian economy is being suffocated by actions of the government and basically totally being destroyed. So that's a nutshell about this whole economic situation in Ukraine. Then actually let's move to military overview. We're gonna just mention the sort of generic topic. So about also 3 or 4 hours ago, HIMARS systems attacked this bridge, Antonivskyy bridge in Kherson, and there were at least 8 hits on the bridge. So it's pretty extremely high probability that the bridge at this point is totally destroyed. That's no longer usable in any shape or form. So that's really now creates a major problem for the Russian command on how to supply the troops there. Not to mention that there were again attacks near Melitopol here. We mentioned about that railroad junction there. So what we're probably seeing is that Ukrainian command is actually continuously sort of destroying this juncture to make the repair attempts futile and sort of like kind of like break the will to continue that. So, and then there were also attacks here in the rear, in the Russian rear here. They were more directed against fuel depots there. So now let's actually switch to walk through the front line. We always do in a clockwise fashion, starting from the very north. So situation here along the state border is more or less the same, no essential differences. It does seem there was accident with Ukrainian troops or army, whoever it was, using Switchblade 300 on the border crossing, and allegedly it actually hit like Moldova citizens or something like that. So we're still trying to figure out what happened there. So apparently there was some kind of mistake in the process that was made, maybe, or at least allegedly. So it's still unclear what exactly happened there. But potentially there was sort of error in the application of the Switchblade 300. Now let's move south. Let's see what's going on actually east of Kharkiv. Things here basically frozen, just positional sort of defenses, nothing really to report here. Now let's move to Izyum bridgehead, and then here things are also very positional. There was only some small scale fight in Bogorodichne, similar to yesterday, but really no essential differences, nothing. So basically this whole area is essentially frozen. Now let's actually move to North Donbass front line. Things here are actually pretty active. So as you can see, there were attacks more or less along there, most of the front line, typical areas, Verkhovno-Kamensk, Ivano-Darivka, Berestove. So actually with Berestove, the situation is the following. Ukrainian command reports that they still fully control Berestove. Russian sources say that they managed to capture Berestove. So we don't have any confirmation to one way or another. So we'll just wait for until the sort of another sort of confirmation surfaces, and we'll update that. Then there were attacks here towards Soledar, and then also in Pokrovsk. We mentioned this before, that the Russian side captured southern part of Pokrovsk, and northern is controlled by Ukrainian troops. So the Russian sources report that they managed to squeeze out Ukrainian troops from the northern part. Remains to be seen. We're not saying that this is for sure. This is just information. We'll have confirmation probably tomorrow. Now let's move a little bit towards south of the same sort of front line, but sort of more southern section of the North Donbass front line. So here, as you can see, we mentioned this yesterday, that Ukrainian front line here in the process of collapse. So that's exactly what happened. Russian troops managed to capture Vuglegirsk power plant, and specifically Wagner mercenaries. That's who operates here. That's who managed to achieve that. And then they're also essentially clearing out this call it village, a small tiny town, Novoluganske. So we can. It's not we can, but it's for sure Ukrainian troops lost this whole area. The only question is, it seems that some small portion of Ukrainian troops might have been trapped in this Novoluganske, so it's unclear if they will successfully break out and manage to get to the Ukrainian front lines. So, but from Vuglegirsk power plant, the retreat was more or less orderly. It just here the Ukrainian troops were engaged in fighting, so it was very difficult to disengage, basically. So now this is a new front line here. It's a little bit more streamlined, and as you can see, even that even if Russian troops are still in sort of smaller number, they still manage to squeeze Ukrainian troops from the territory. So there's still no sort of I guess the strategy, very like concrete and very clear strategy by Ukrainian command or Ukrainian troops as a whole, how to actually have successful defense. And that what we this is also goes back to the to discussion we had before, that Ukrainian troops are not skilled and in attacks and active defenses, which really means that once you need to do like active counterattacks. If, let's say, Russian troops captured whatever, you need to counterattack. You really need to fight back. You need to be moving. You need to be maneuverable. You need to be sort of intelligent and so on. And this is not what is happening. And as a result, it's all very rigid defensive approaches, which don't provide good defensive tactic in the long run. And that's where there is a lack in many ways at every level. Let's put this way. And by the way, on this topic, we saw the training, kind of training that Ukrainian troops getting in the UK, and we would say that training is really somewhat not applicable, not relevant for the war that's been going on in Ukraine. We're not talking about the training with equipment. That's totally relevant and all that. Specifically, like tactical fighting training, it's what they are learning is essentially how to clear out houses. So it's more like anti-terror action, sort of similar to, let's say, what probably was going on in Afghanistan or so, where your enemy is extremely weak and really kind of like running away from you. This is a totally different war. It's, as we discussed, it's some kind of a hybrid of World War One, World War Two, and plus some modern warfare. So it's totally not misdirected training, in our opinion. This is only relates to the portion that actually trains actual soldiers how to fight on battlefield. We haven't seen like any training that teaches them how to dig in, how to do proper digging, how to create proper entrenched defensive positions, and so on. It's totally not there. And unfortunately, the problem with all of this, that soldiers who are gonna get training thinking that now they some kind of Rambos and they know and can do anything on the battlefield, and when they come, it will be very big shock. So that's also where the part of the problem could be on the battlefield, and that can lead to heavy casualties. So now let's a little bit move towards south. Let's see what's going on west of Donetsk. Things here are frozen, positional, defensive situation. Nothing really new to report. The only thing is we want to mention that Ukrainian command is attacking, as we discussed, their fuel depots here in the sort of immediate sort of rear of the Russian troops east of Donetsk. Now let's move to Zaporizhia front line, and we're just gonna quickly mention it's the same position here, no difference. It's all defensive fighting, exchange of artillery fire. Really, nothing changes here. Now let's move to Kherson bridgehead. So we discussed before that Ukrainian troops attempted their attack from this small bridgehead that they still hold near Davidi. So we want to make it very clear. Davidi is in Russian hands. The Ukrainian bridgehead starts like literally south of Davidi, or I guess the correct direction is southwest. So it starts like literally southwest of Davidi. So they attempted to break through Russian defenses, and apparently it didn't go sort of well, correctly. If you remember, the commander of 28th Brigade apparently got killed in the action, and so on. So It's still unclear to us like what sort of tactic Russian troops used to sort of destroy Ukrainian attack, and we don't have much details. Unfortunately, this section of the front line is really somewhat a black hole in many ways. And then this is update what we mentioned. We're gonna show here on the map. So this is this Antonivskyy bridge. So we haven't seen evidence, but we have from the evidence we've seen, it's like 99% guaranteed that it's being destroyed after attack a few hours ago. So this bridge is essentially out of action, and then Russian troops tried to build pontoon bridge here, but it's even easier to destroy it. And just there was some actually question from some of the viewers, why is it like so difficult to destroy these bridges? The reason that it's difficult because they're made of concrete. Concrete is super hard material to destroy. And that's why it's being used. It's not only like concrete, it's actually reinforced. So you have like steel bars inside of concrete to make them basically more agile. How I don't know. I don't want to go into sort of mechanical engineering topics, but basically makes their concrete more agile, because in a way concrete somewhat kind of like a brittle, not brittle, but kind of like rigid material in a simple way to how to explain. So if you have like a extension of it, so you need steel bars to help the concrete to carry the load, and essentially that makes it even much more stronger. So in any case, so this bridge is essentially gone. This bridge is pretty much there as well, and this bridge is also kind of almost gone, except well, it's not the bridge, it's a road, and then there's a small section of the bridge. But this one was kind of like hastily repaired and not properly repaired, because actually this steel structure was damaged, so they just kind of like basically kind of like covered up potholes, essentially. That repair was not quality repair by any means. But they probably don't care about the future. They just need to survive right now. But this is probably going to be another attack toward this, and that's essentially going to make this whole trifecta done. And at that point, it's going to be super hard for Russian command to supply these troops and support them. And then it's. This is not going to be sort of like overnight. Oh, they just done. It's going to be slow attrition, where they're getting like with each sort of passing day less fuel and less ammunition and less until their battle capability will diminish enough so that Ukrainian army, the way it is in its very low ability to attack, can actually execute that attack. So this is kind of sort of how this whole dynamic is going to probably play out, and it's probably going to take assuming everything stays the same as it is right now, probably another month before Ukrainian army can really push Russian troops out at that point. And then as we discussed, then there was also attack here. There's a railroad line here north of Melitopol, actually a railroad juncture that goes east-west and north-south. So it was attacked again because that's a major supply road that goes through this dam near Nova Kakhovka. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.